Hi everyone, welcome to another class, and it's been a while. So today we are going to be talking about Git and GitHub and how that's going to help us in our development, and also just a brief understanding on why we need to use um, Git and GitHub. So when we are building our application, most times we don't build in isolation, so you have to build like with a team. Probably have like a team of 4 people, 5 people, even 2 people, and then you need to share code between, like, amongst yourself, right? So it's always best to have a tool that can help you easily do that. Without such tools, what would have happened would be like you will need to write your code, probably send it to a flash drive, you zip it or whichever way you want to put inside your flash drive, and then you need to send it across to your partner to actually use. And imagine, like, the way the world is right now, like the world is a global village. None of us is in the same location, everybody's in different location, and then we need to work together as a team. Then I need to send file to you, and how am I going to be able to use a flash drive to send it across to you? It's not going to work. It's going to kill a lot of time, right? So it's best to have tools that can make us to work remotely, and so we don't need to be in the same location to be able to share files. And not just about sharing files too. What about if I wrote a code and then I wanted to try something new, right? I just want to try something new, not like I'm moving away from what I've written. I need the current version that is still working, but I'm going to deviate a bit in this new version while holding the other version. Normally, when you do something like that, you might go to your file and then probably, let me say, you do something like this. I'm just going to use this as my code. I'll just write random stuff here, just random file, and then I'm going to save this in my system. I'm going to save this as random file.txt, so it's saved. And probably I want to try do some calculation or do something new, right? But I'm still going to come back to this particular file. I don't want to change what is here, because probably it's a very, very important stuff like I've done. I don't want to change whatever is here, but I still need a copy of this to be able to do an improvement on it, or just try a couple of things out before I come back to it. Usually when you want to do that, then you probably need to receive this file again and call it like backup. So I'll come here and say save as, and so instead of calling it random.file, I might add something like backup, and then I save it. So I have the backup, I have the other file. I'll probably open the file that I had previously. I know the backup is my original content, right? Then I open this file that is random file here, and then I trust it, and then I will just add something new and say this is me trying to add a new feature. And so if I actually do this right here, and probably I don't like what I see here and I want to go back, I'll come back here. But imagine that we need to make like other type of changes too. Then I will have to have like backup 1, backup 2, backup 3, backup 4, backup 5 till backup n. And that's not going to be easy to maintain, right? So instead of doing stuff like this, we can manage the different versions of our code using Git. We'll use Git to manage different versions of our code. And then if you heard what I was talking about previously, I was talking about being able to share files between different colleagues, as in amongst ourselves, right? Now that is GitHub on its own. So we have Git and we have GitHub. We use Git to actually manage the different versions of our code or whatever we are writing, or our documentation, whatever the case may be. So we don't need to have different backup files, right? Git is going to help us to manage that, and that's why it's a version control system. It's very good that we are in tune with this terminology of, okay, what is a version control system, right? Now GitHub helps to be able to now share this file, because Git lives in your system alone. So Git is not actually exposed to, it's not exposed to the web. I can't just access your file even if you're saving it on Git. Git is managing that version for you on your system, right? But then your colleague needs to actually see that file, and also needs to be able to access the different versions that you've created. And then you also need to be able to access your colleagues' files too, with also the different versions of the stuff that he or she has done, right? So GitHub gives us that platform. It's not just GitHub that we have like GitLab, we have like Bitbucket. There are different version control, there are different I think I need to get the terminology for that. There are different tools online, right, that help us to be able to manage or to be able to share what Git has already saved in our system to like anybody that we need to have access to it, right? So I'm not going to, first of all, I'm logged into ChatGPT and just going to just a quick search of some of this terminology. So say what is a version control system? So you can see some of the stuff that, yeah, you've not actually used some of these things, but it's fine. But you can see those that are like bold and black. Like the first one says tracking changes. So when you want to track changes, you can actually make use of Git to track your changes, as we've explained before. And so if there's a mistake somewhere along the line, or probably like a bug was introduced into your code, you can go back to a particular state. Yeah, we actually talk about state now. When you have saved your change, there are different states. This probably this is the working state, this is the development state of your code. You can go back to a particular one or to a particular branch as we have it, and then fix that bug and push your code. Now when you see point 4 that talks about collaboration, it says VCS facilitates collaboration among developers, providing mechanisms for sharing code changes, commenting on them, and resolving conflicts that may arise. So this is where GitHub actually then plays. GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. This is where they actually come and then try to enhance the functionality of Git itself. And then I talked about documentation too. So we have history and documentation. As a developer, as an engineer, you need to actually document your code. And so once you're improving your code, once you're making changes, your thought process, or not basically your thought process, but things like how to set up your project, prerequisites of things that the user needs to install, the steps on how to set it up, the step on how to run it, and the likes of all those things, how to test your application, needs to be documented. And so when you're making your incremental changes, you also need to document those changes also. It needs to appear in your document. So you can also use Git to actually manage that, right? So Git is actually a distributed version control system. So we have stuff like Mercurial, Bazaar. I haven't actually used any of this. I have only used Git. So this is what Git is actually going to help us, right, do. And then we are going to also be chaining our Git with GitHub. So Right now, what I want to actually do here is set up Git for a Windows system, and I'm not going to be doing like I know this whole stuff off the top of my head, so I'm just going to be doing the research. So you see, as you can see my thought process too, right? And also like how I try to find solutions to problems when I encounter them. So what I'm going to try to ask ChatGPT is, how can I set up Git on Windows system, because I'm trying to use a Windows system to do this. So how to set up Git on Windows machine. Okay. Okay. Yes, and I had to actually take this system, like borrow this system, so I don't use a Windows system, right? So that I can be able to do this Windows tutorial. Uh, I actually had to use like create a new. I haven't actually even done that, but I'll do that during this call. I'm going to create a new GitHub account so that I'm going to be linking with this Git. So I'm not. I already have all these things set up on my own system, but I just want to do it afresh right here. So it says that we should download Git from this particular website. So I'm just going to open that. I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to download for Windows. So as of today, this is 2.44.0 version, right? So I think this is 64-bit system, so I'm just going to download this. Then once this is done, I'm going to be following the next step here, which is to run the installer. So opening it in my folder. This is my folder here. Just drag this, and then I'm running Git. I'm running the installer. Okay. So you might not see this, but it's asking me, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? I'm going to say yes. Okay. Let me just drag this inside here. So I click on next. I'm just going to click on next here. I'm going to click on next. Let me see if VS Code is here. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code as Git's default editor. So yes, next. I'm going to let Git decide. I'm going to click on that. I'm just going to click on that. Next. Check out Windows style. Let me see which is recommended. So I'm going to click on next. I'm just selecting the default for most of this. So I'm installing it right now. See? So as soon as that is done, since I already have VS Code here, or I can actually use this. Let's see. Let this just be done. So I'm just going to click on finish, right? Okay, those are his release notes, so I'm just going to close that. So the next thing I'm going to do is, since you're in the Windows system, you can just press command, sorry, not command, Windows R, and it's going to bring out this nice box here, and then I'm going to type CMD inside. Just click on OK for it to put the command prompt and drag it in, and then I'm going to type git version. Yeah, and I can see this on my system, right? This shows me that Git has been successfully installed on my system, and that means that we are fine. So first, before we are done with this particular setup, right, what I'm going to try to do is to set these global configurations so that when I write my code, I can actually see my name and then my email, right? I can see my name as the person that made changes to that particular code, and then it should show my email. I want to do that. So I'm going to open that command prompt again. I'm just going to follow this command here. I'll just replace your name with my name, and then I'll replace the email also. So I'm going to have git config -- the flag global, setting a global flag for user.name, and I'm setting it so you can see my double quotes, right? I'm copy, and I hit on enter. So I'm just going to bring this up again, pressing the up arrow button. So this time around, I'm going to be changing this to email. I'll be setting the global flag for email, and I'll be setting this to amobi.copy@gmail.com. Now click on enter, and so yes, we have Git set up on our system, right? So what I can just do here is to close this. I'm just going to close this and open it again when I need this, but for now let me just close that. So we already have Git set up, which is great. So the next thing I want to do is I want to ask ChatGPT, what's GitHub? See, what is GitHub? So we can see the bunch of answers that we are getting, but first of all, we need to know that GitHub is a web-based platform and service that provides hosting for software development projects using the Git version control system. So then it's listing like a list of features that you can use GitHub to do. The next thing I'm going to ask is are there any alternatives to using GitHub? So you can see there's GitLab, Bitbucket, SourceForge, Gitkraken, AWS Code Commit, Azure Repos, Git-share. Yeah, you can see that we have like other services that we can also use. So it's not compulsory that you use. It's not compulsory that you actually use GitHub, but it's best you just use the one that your team is using. If everybody's using if your team is going to use GitHub, then everybody should stick to GitHub. If your team is using GitLab, everybody should stick with GitLab. If you're using Azure Repos, stick to that. Let everybody be using the same one. Yes. So that's that. So next I'm going to do is I'm going to be signing up on GitHub on my other system. So then I'm going to come back here and try to link Git and then GitHub, so that we'll be able to not just save our files on the system, right, but we'll be able to send it to a remote repository. So so let me get to that here and then sign up on GitHub. So I have signed up on GitHub, right? And so the next thing we want to do is to Google. What am I using Google? Use ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, how can I connect Git to GitHub? On a Windows system. So we've already done this first step. We've done the second one, and so we are going to start from the third step. So the third step talks about generating a key, right? Let me see. So it says, if you prefer to use SSH for authentication, which is what I prefer that we use instead of HTTPS, you can generate an SSH key and add it to your GitHub account. Run the following command to generate an SSH key. Then it says follow the prompt to generate the SSH key and then add the generated SSH key to GitHub. You can find the instructions for adding SSH keys to GitHub here. So I'm going to just open this beside, right? Yeah. I'm going to be hiding that SSH key when I'm posting it. So I'm going to copy this. Then I'm going to paste this here. I'm just going to edit the email. So please don't share your keys with anybody. I'm just going to hit enter file this. Okay, says this is the fingerprint, so I'm going to copy this guy here. I don't know if that's copied. Okay, it did. So I've copied that. Now I'm going to read what it says here. So we are in this way about addition of SSH keys to your account. So it says adding your SSH key to your account. This somehow we've done this already, so that's what I just copied from the command line, right? So I'm just going to follow the rest of this instruction here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into GitHub, right? I have to log into GitHub. Sign in. Here my password. Save that now. So I'm going to come to this icon that we can see here, right? The documentation might not be up to date. I'm not so sure about that, but if I come to this icon here, which might be your profile picture already, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to look for settings, which is what you can see down here. I'll click on settings. Now I've gone to settings, right? The next thing I need to look for is SSH and GPG keys. So I look for that, and then I can see SSH keys here. So I'm going to take that step again, right? I'm going to take that step again so that we can all see what's going on. So the first thing I did was to come to this image here, or my profile picture. If I had uploaded my picture, I'd have seen my picture here, but I don't have a picture here, so it's looking blank. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to look for settings somewhere down here. Click on settings. Now I will come to the left hand side, and I'm going to look for SSH and GPG keys. I'm going to find out there. Even if there's no GPG, just look for SSH keys. But right now, from this current version we are seeing, you can see SSH and GPG keys. So I'm going to click on that. Now I'm going to click on new SSH key here, which is this particular key here, right? And then this, I'm going to write it. I'm going to give it the title. I'm going to call it Windows login. I'm going to call it my Windows login. So this is an authentication key. Let me read the documentation again. Okay, so I'm going to select authentication key here, and then it says it should start with SSH-RSA. This is, so it's giving you option of what it's supposed to start with, right? So I know it already started with something like that. Wait, let me see. Just to be certain, I'm going to use a particular command here. Let's see. Let me actually first do this. I'm going to list whatever is inside this file first. Whatever is inside this directory. Let me do that. ls won't work. Let me see the Windows command for listing. So I'm going to go here. So say Windows command for listing and directory. Okay. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to do ATIR instead. I'm so used to Windows and Linux, that's why. So I have an issue here. If I copy this particular, if your public key has a different name. Okay. I think I can get the name of that file. Let me see. idrsa.com. This is our public key here. So what we can just do is to write this clip command. We have the less than symbol, and then this /id_rsa.pub. So this is actually where I'm getting this public key from here. You can see your public key has been saved to this. So the name of the file is different, so I have to actually update it to what I saved it as, and I hit enter. Oh no. Okay, this instead. Oh, I'm going to copy the full part. I'll copy the full part and just do that. Exactly. So I've copied that. Let me see if this works. I'm going to try and paste it. Wonderful. So yes, I have it here. So instead of pasting what I had previously, right? Instead of pasting this, I'm just going to paste this instead. You can see that it started with this here, and it ends with my email. You need to check for that. I start with something like this, and it ends with the email. Like you can see that I saw that I noticed that I was with the wrong stuff, because I checked this message that was written here, and this message was very, very helpful for me, that it has to start with one of these, and then what I had didn't start with any of this, and that's why I had to actually go check what I have, right? So I paste that here, and then I add SSH key, and then it's just as simple as that. So this is done. I have this read and write access here. In fact, I just received an email. Let me read some of the content of that email. It says the following SSH key was added to your account by Windows login, and then through some things here. It says if you believe this key was added in error, you can remove the key and disable access at the following location. So it's possible for me to delete this in case I was not the one that created it, but I created it for this, so we don't have any problem with this. So what am I going to be doing to just prove that this works? I'm going to first let me create a random file first of all. So I'm going to start the VS Code this time around. So the first thing I'm going to do is come here. I'm going to create a folder here called project. I'm going to call it projects. Inside this, I'm going to be creating the folder we're going to be working from. I'm going to be calling it I'm going to be calling this folder Git test, right? So that's fine. Now I'm going to be opening that folder here. I'm going to open that folder. Git test, select folder. Yeah, voila, we have that. Yes, I trust because it's me. Yeah, trust myself. So what I'm going to do here is to be creating an index.html file, and I'm going to use this to autofill it, and then I'm going to write here, this is the first version of my file. I'm going to save that. Now this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to open a terminal. Just this might be different on your system, right? Okay, you can see in full screen you have terminal here, but if I don't make it full screen, I just see these dots here. So let me just make it full screen so we can all see what I'm doing. Then I'm going to click on new terminal down here. You can see PowerShell here, right? Now the first thing I'm going to do, right, I'm going to be running a couple of commands here. I'm going to write git init. I want to initialize this repository. Let me first run this command here. -a, because I can't run that. Wonderful. Okay. see if I can change this. So I can't still paste. Okay, it's fine. So I'm just going to do git init. So I have initialized this repository. If you noticed, we just had one funny looking thing coming here. We have master. Now this is the name of the branch I'm working on. This is like the default branch. Previously people used master, but because of some, I don't know how to explain that, Black Lives Matter, slave, and all those kind of things, like they've changed that to like main now, so that they don't use like derogatory terms. So if you see master or you see main, you shouldn't be afraid of that. Like, it's kind of like the default branch you're working on. So the next things we'll be talking about after this will be about all those terminologies that we're going to be using here. Like, you're hearing things about branches, you're hearing about repository and the likes. So this is a master branch, this is a git file, and I'm just going to be running a couple of things here. I'm not going to go into everything, because I'll explain all those later, right? But what I want to do here is just to save this file. I also want to create another version of this file, and I also want to push this to GitHub. So I'm going to save what we have here. I'm just going to write git add. I'm going to add everything here, git add, and I'm going to do git commit -am, and I'm going to write a message, or -m if you like, and the message I'm going to write that this is my first commit message. Now I have that already committed, right? I can do something else, and then I want to make a change to this particular stuff, but I still want to have this particular change here in case I need it later on. So I'm going to do what we call like branching out. I'm going to create another branch, and then I'm going to make that change in that second branch, and I'll be able to switch between those two branches and see those two different changes. Whichever one I want to work with, I will actually work with that one at the same time. I'll work with that particular one by changing into the branch that needs to be changed into. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a branch called dev. I'm going to say git checkout. I'm going to use the -b flag to create a new branch, and I'm going to call it dev. So it's going to create this new branch for me, and then it's going to check into that branch, and then I'm going to make the change in that branch and then save that. Now you can see that I'm no longer in the master branch, I'm in the dev branch. So what I can actually do here is to make my change here, and I'm going to write this is the second version of my file, right? I'm just going to write something else here. I am just going to write something else here. Right. Now I'm going to also git add this, right? I'm saving this, and then I'm committing also. I'm done with my changes for this, and I want to save my changes. Remember that all of this is happening in my local system. My teammates will not be able to access this, right? So I'm just going to do this and say this is an updated version of my file on the branch. I didn't save the file, sorry. So I'm going to run through this again. Git add, git commit. Now I've committed my change here, right? I told you guys that peradventure I don't want to. I explained before that it's going to be easy for me to change into the previous branch. It's possible that I don't like what I'm seeing here, and I wanted to go back to the first version and probably continue from the first version and continue writing whatever I need to write in the first version. So how am I going to do that? I'm just going to need to come here and say git checkout, and I'm going to call the master branch. And then you can see it's been updated to that master branch, and I can easily switch back to the dev branch if I need to continue working from there. I have all those versions saved on my system. So I'll just do git checkout dev branch, and then I'm back there. So all this makes working with your remote team very, very easy and quite convenient, right? The last thing I would like to do here is to actually, I'm going to create a repository. Now a repository is kind of like a folder of that particular project you're working on. It contains the full folder, it contains each and every other file, not just, we're using index.html, but if I had other files and I had other folders here, that's why I've done the git add, and then I did the git commit, right? Once I push them, I'll be able to find them inside this repository. So the repository is kind of like the folder. You can just think about it like the folder of a project, right? That should be your repository. So I'm going to leave this particular place because we're done with this, right? I'm going to click on your repositories. We currently don't have any, right? And I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it git test, and it's available. It should. I'm going to make it a public repository. Public repository in the sense that anybody can come and see it, like it's free, everybody can access it. But if I make it a private repository, it means it's not accessible to the public. It's only accessible to myself and probably anybody that I want to have access to it, right? I can write a brief description here, like say this is a repo used to demonstrate power of Git and GitHub. Yes, I'm not going to add a readme file today. I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to click on create repository. Yes, I'm going to be selecting SSH of HTTPS. Remember when we tried to add the key, we set it up for SSH and not HTTPS. So I'm going to click on this first of all, right? The next thing I'm going to do, I can use either of these commands to link my GitHub to my Git, but we need to read the instructions, these bold lines here, on what the both of them are actually going to do, and then we can ignore this one. So this says create a new repository on the command line or push an existing repository from the command line. Truth be told, we already have a repository, which is our file here. If we do not have this, if we are going to start from GitHub first of all, we do not have any file to work with, right? We are going to run this. I think I should show you this next time, right? Or I can do a quick one on this after just showing this. After showing this particular stuff we have here. So we are going to be using the second one because we already have a repository already. So what we just need to do is to copy these commands. I'm going to be making some edits. I'm going to be making some edits here because we have main here, right? Let me see. Oh, well, let me just push this. Let me copy this and push this. See. So I'm going to paste it here. So it says that it's asking some questions about the key because this is the first time I'm doing this. Are you sure you want to continue? I'm going to write yes because it says this key is not known by any this key is not known by any other names, blah blah blah. But I know that this key is coming from GitHub because I just copied it right now, so I can accept it and click on this. Yep. So set this already. In fact, it's already pushed this to GitHub. So the command was successful. How do I know the command was successful? I'm going to come to GitHub. I'm going to refresh this. And here we can see our file, and it was created 6 minutes ago. And the number of commits that we have here is 2. But we didn't work with the main branch, so I'm just going to go back to the master branch that we had, and also the dev branch, and then we can compare the content in that particular file. So this is the main branch. I'm instead going to view all branches. Let me not do this. Go back, and then I'm going to select okay. I can't see the remaining branch. I can only see the main branch. So what I'm going to come here to do is I need to push the remaining branches here, right? I'm going to go to ChatGPT and ask, how can I push all my Git branches to GitHub? So it's going to use git push, or I already know the remote repository. We've added that already. Yeah, so we will need to use this particular command. This is the command that we need to use here: git push origin all, and then I'm going to do that. Okay. Now let's refresh this. I still can't see the dev branch. Okay. The dev branch was renamed to the main branch. Oops. Okay. So let's work with this. One. So let's just imagine, because this is what it is right now. The dev branch is the main branch here, and then we have the master branch. Now this is the content of the dev branch. It has that second change that we made right inside here. This is the second version of my file. I'm just going to write something else, and then I can select the master branch, and then you're going to see, forget about the naming, right? But the master branch has this is the first version of my file. So we've been able to create 2 different versions, and it's going to be very easy for us to manage it and work with it. This is how we actually use Git and GitHub, and actually very I can't say it's simple because probably it's the first time that you're using it. There are still some other stuff with this that we need to get into, right? And then we need to get used to some terminologies, what it means to be in a staging area, what it means to push, what it means to commit, and the rest. So the other thing I wanted to do is to show you how we can actually, first of all, create our repository on GitHub and then push it down to our system and then start working from there. So this time around, we're not going to be creating a project first on our system and then pushing it to GitHub. We are going to start from GitHub, create it there, and then bring it to our system, and then we can make any change and push it up, right? So how are we going to do that? I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to click on create new repository. So let me do that again. I'm going to come here, click on create new repository. I'm going to call it git test 2. I'm going to be leaving the description for now, right? And just click on create repository. Now I'm going to be using this first option here. I'm just going to copy this. Remember that you have to select SSH. Even if it's not selected, you have to select SSH here, right? I'm going to copy this. I'll come to my code here. I'm going to cd out of here. That means I'm going to move one level out of the git test folder. Let me look at this command we have here. So what I'm going to do is create a directory called git test 2, and I'm going to cd into that directory. So I'm going to call this git 2, right? And then I'm going to let me just open the directory and the folder directory, whichever is fine by you. All right. So we can see that there's no file here, it's actually empty. I'll come to the terminal, click on the terminal, click on new terminal, right? Then I'm going to paste my commands here. Then with just this simple step, we are able to take whatever we have here on GitHub already, because we've already created this file on GitHub, and then we now have it on our system. So if I check this particular guy here, I can see this readme file, which is the only file we have, and then the readme is the only file we have here. So I can actually come down here and create another file, probably call it text.txt, and then I'm going to come here and write this is a test hard, and then I'll save that. Then I need to git add, I need to git commit with a message, right? Alright, updating my test pad. Now we've actually saved this, we've committed the message to our local system, and I saved on Git, but I need to push it to GitHub, because if you reload this, if you refresh your page here, you're still just going to see just one file. We still just have only one file, right? That's not cool, because here we can see that we have 2 files. So we need to actually push this particular code to GitHub. And how can we do that? We're going to have git push origin main, and as simple as that, we've pushed our code to GitHub. And then if I refresh this, I can see my text.txt, and just to be sure that I have the same content inside I'm going to click on this. Then I can see this is a test part, same as what I have here. Also, you can see my commit message. This is the first commit. It was created by default by GitHub when I actually created the repository. But you can see my second commit here, updating my test part. Now I'm going to make a change here just to prove that when we are working with Git, if you don't push your changes, your teammate is not going to see your change. It's still going to be local to your system, right? I'm going to write something here. Can you see this in the remote repository? So what you have on your system is a local repository. What you have on GitHub is a remote repository. So I have saved this here, and I'm going to try to refresh this page, this particular page here. It's still, this is a test part that is here. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to git add and git commit, and then refresh that page and see if you're going to see it. So I'm going to git add. Let me try to refresh after git adding. I'm going to try to refresh it after git adding, right? Refresh this. No change. The last change was 2 minutes ago. If you can look at this up here, right? If you can see that up there, right? So I'll come down here and I'm going to commit with a message. I'm going to say testing visibility on remote repository, or I can say remote repo. It's a short form for repository. We can see here that one file changed, 4 insertions, because we have 1, 2, 3. Can't remember I deleted it. I said like I deleted one line. Okay, no problem with that. The next thing we can do is, or we should do, is to refresh this. And then there's still no change here. And if you look down here, you will see an arrow button here, like 1. This is showing 0. This is showing 1. Git VS Code is actually trying to help us here, and it's telling us like you have 1 change that you need to push up. You have 0 changes that you need to pull down, right? So what we can actually do is try to push this particular change up, and so that we can see it up there, because we just confirm right now when we refresh this that the change has not been updated. So I'm going to use this command git push origin main, and as soon as I do this, we'll wait to get a response, and you can see that you can see the message here, writing objects 100% this to GitHub, blah blah blah. It's showing the name of the repository. And then when I refresh this, I can see my change here, which makes it very, very, very wonderful to use. The last thing I want to do is I actually want to make a change on this particular file, which is a remote repository, and see if you are going to see it inside our local repository. In our local repository, can you see this change in your local repository? So committing is saving your changes. When you hear the word commit changes, it means that you're saving your changes. I'm going to click on that. So I'm going to call this visualizing remote changes on local system, and then I'm going to commit it. I'm committing here. So we have those changes here. Sorry, we have those changes here, but you can see that we cannot actually, we can't see the change right here. The change is not actually here. So how can we get that change here? What I can do is to do a git fetch. Right. Trying to fetch from the remote repository. So though I fetched it, I cannot still see the change here, but I can actually see this arrow button here is giving me a signal like there's a change up that I need to pull down, and so as the word says, I'm just going to git pull, and then I can see that particular change here, and so that's it. So when you're working with your teammates, you need to push to actually, you push to send your changes to them so they can see your change, and then you will also need to fetch and also pull to be able to see their own changes, and so that someone's not working on something that has gone too far, and then you're working on your own stuff here. You don't know your teammate has already gone far, has already built like a lot of features, and then when it's time for you guys to do like kind of like merging there's like kind of like an issue because of this miscommunication. So you have to push your code regularly. It's your teammates pushing this code regularly, and then you also be fetching. There's also a GitHub workflow on how to do a Git workflow on how to work with all this. We'll get into all of that. Lastly, like the last thing I want to talk about is actually the history. So I can see the history of this particular file. So these are different histories here. First of all, we did this particular one, updating my test pad, right? And then the next thing that we did was the first one I did from the local to the remote, and then I did from the remote to the local. So you can see the history, and you can see my username on GitHub. I would like to change that, but not today. So this is my username on GitHub. Yep, this is my username on GitHub. I committed this particular change here. But if your teammate actually committed the change, you would have seen that here. So instead of seeing your name, you see another person's name. I want us to work more as a team, in groups, right? Like we work in groups because really, for the most part of your career, you'll be working with other people, and then you need to make contributions, and they also make contributions to your code too. So that's all we have for today. Thank you for watching, and then we'll continue from here in our next class. Thank you.